right.
Okay. So in 1988, I took a position with the Upjohn Pharmaceutical Department, or pharmaceutical company. And in that quest for fulfilling my lifetime career of trying to do graphic design for the good of mankind, it became obvious that it was a little bit more commercial than I usually worked in, but here it was, I was communicating critical information to an ethical pharmaceutical company, meaning that if someone was in a hospital or in an ambulance and they needed to be injected with a hematopoiesis replication of red blood cells in order to save their lives, meaning that they were having a myocardial infarction and they needed to be injected with Emanase, one of Upjohn's products, they needed to know what the dosage strength was and the form that they needed to work with. So the paramedic in the ambulance doesn't have very much time to grab the right product. And the legibility and the readability is absolutely critical. So while I was working at Upjohn, they saw that I had a strong sense and ability to systems theory. And this was something that they needed because Upjohn has over 2,500 configurations in which they package their products. Now, each of those products have different dosage and strengths. They have different formats or forms like powder or fluid or ointment, so on. So along with the 114 jobs I had on my plate at one time, they added the Upjohn Pharmaceutical Trade Dress project on my list of projects. What that meant was I had a complex project or a complex problem to solve in as simple a form as possible. We have 30 subsidiaries around the world. We print our products in 7 different languages, at least, if not more. And so we started to look at what is called the trade dress packaging system. And we evolved 4 unique designs that went from very close to the existing packaging, separating itself a little bit more, and then separating itself even more, and so on. And that's what we have over here. There is the one that is closest to what Upjohn had to begin with, and then another with a little bit more color, and then one with a bit more of the Upjohn gray that would distinguish it from the older product, and then one with a bit more contemporary quality. And yet it still used the color of that product. Now, the things I'm talking about when you're in the ambulance, the idea of 0.125 milligram, they need to know that right away. And so the character spacing of that typography is super critical for a person to read it quickly. And there was in that product, or in that packaging, pretty clear statement there. This one, very large, but it was on a more gray field. So all of the focus tests that we did around the world, we asked them how they felt about specific readability and not so much on appeal, because this is behind the counter. It's not over the or on the counter being sold by its image. This is ethical pharmaceutical products. So the result came back that this, out of the 4 examples, was the one that was most successful. Now, how do you get that design around the world with 30 subsidiaries that had manufacturing facilities in various locations that were producing these packages for the Upjohn Company? So I created a standards manual. And the standards manual is this binder that is quite elaborate. And basically, this one diagram kind of sums it all up. You have the development of the product. It's kind of abstract. It involves testing and a variety of methods of efficacy and so on. So it really was the beginning of the packaging, is before the actual product was there. Then there is a phase 2 where the planning and labeling begin, so that you can identify the dosage, the strength, the efficacy, the trademark, the overall form of the medication, the dosage strength, and that information comes in on phase 2. So phase 3 is where that information is transformed into graphic language. And the drug enforcement agencies and the NDC require certain things to be certain point sizes on packages. So in the sense of the trademark, which we wanted to make sure it was easily projected, it has to be a certain point size, and the noun or the method, like tablet, has to be a certain point size, and the actual generic name has to be half the point size of the logo. So all of this was taken into consideration in developing this new image for Upjohn, so that we could advance our trademark and pronounce our generic name, the dosage strength, and any practical or pragmatic things that need to be on there, like the Upjohn logo. And then the last phase is basically printing and manufacturing. So this was metaphoric of closing the package up and having everything in place. So these 4 phases: the first, the packaging development and what the size of the form is; then the phase 2, which is where we get the text and the copy for the product; then phase 3, the treatment, and phase 4, where they actually go into printing and manufacturing. All of this was done before the software that would allow that to happen. But what I did with this manual is I created all of the language that was essential for software programmers to take this knowledge and create the packaging that was necessary for each product. So, like I said, 2,500 configurations. What I did was said, okay, some are square, some are horizontal, and some are vertical. So all of these here are on an axis of vertical. All of these are on the axis of horizontal. And the center diagonal line are square. But in order for this packaging to be somewhat consistent, you can't use the same parameters for this as you would for this, meaning the large and the small. So I would take a grid and lay it over the package and say how many grid units it would take for you to say this banner has to be 6 units as opposed to 4 units. It's hard to explain this in just words and even to show you some examples. It is a very complex algorithm. And so all of the products came down to that kind of a matrix for the front of the box. Then there was one for the lid of the box, one for the left side of the panel, which would hold some of the notes on the contents. And then going into the package, you have blister packages, you have a variety of tubes, and all of those were elaborated in this manual. In the back of the manual, you have several key cards. The icons for each of the products, whether the product was a capsule or an oval tablet with a score, a rounded tablet without a score, solution or liquids, IV drips, injections, the press tabs of the Xanax product, which is very unique, granules, powder, cream, ointment, gel foam, which is something that's put into an open operation to absorb any excess bleeding and would dissolve by itself. Then there are suppositories, sprays, and a variety of other specific forms. I had to indicate how big those should appear on the front cover, where this would be too small, or this would be in the wrong orientation, and so on. How big the Upjohn logo would be. Then there is a section on the colors. All of the products are in basic categories or product lines. One is general products, one is metabolic, one is reproductive, one is critical care, one is oncology, anti-inflammatory, corticoid, cardiovascular, antibiotic, and central nervous system. So each had its unique color, and if there were two products within, like say for instance, the central nervous system, we would give two alternative colors that would match that in general value. If there are more in oncology, that color has its relationship with the other two. So there is kind of this language of harmonics, like these top three are a family of color. That in itself was a masterful realization by our packaging group. And I have to do a shout out to Tricia Hennessy, a colleague of mine, that developed these colors. I have to do a shout out to Chris Ferrier, who designed the one packaging system that we went through. And also a shout out to, Hamish Thompson from New Zealand, who did this design. So Chris Ferrier did this one, Hamish did this one, and we had a couple other people that helped me with the other two. But you have to realize, when you have 115 jobs on your plate and you are responsible for getting all of these done, you need to art direct rather than design with the product in hand. And in order for us to assure that all these colors were correct in the 30 subsidiaries, I had these color tolerance cards made, and the students at Western Michigan University helped me assemble these. And we had our printing services in-house print up the colors, the lightest and the darkest variations, so that they could take this card to a job and lay that on here and see if that color is too dark or too light. There, it was too dark, and on this one, it's just right. So they would have that around the world, the same color charts, and these would be kept in ultraviolet protection, so that when they pulled it out, it would be pretty close to what we had specified. That's more or less the Upjohn packaging or trade dress venture here. And it seems like all the space it gets is so small compared to all of the years that it took for me to pull that together. It was a good 3 years, and it was done pretty much all in-house, except for me hiring some outside designers to assist it. So it saved Upjohn quite a considerable amount of money. So
Awesome.
that's kind of what I'd like to do on a couple of things.
Sure, yeah,
And it's
absolutely.
not like something I can write